We are so very, very blessed to welcome beloved Lori Frisbie here for the first time to speak to the NVC community. Let me tell you a little bit about beloved Lori. You've probably known her, you have seen her. She was very active, used to be very much a part of this community. She's a personal friend of mine. She's a beloved mother, a very, very revered wife. She's a wonderful practitioner and an artist. Oh my goodness, we have examples of her beautiful art around the campus. I could go on, but let's give it up for beloved Lori Frisbie.
Wow. Good morning, New Vision Center. Wow. My blessings are truly overflowing. It is a delight to be with you this morning. I know you are wrapping up this series on a journey through joy. Not an easy task in the middle of this pandemic, in the middle of a heat wave. But nearly every day, I hear from someone that talks about the challenges of how difficult it is, of what's going on in their life, and how they can't seem to find joy anymore. That the hardships are just so present and they're tucked inside their homes. But what I know is that joy, true joy, is always present. It is always present right here. Joy is in the midst of everything, every challenge, every disappointment, every disagreement, every concern upon our heart. And our challenge is to adjust our dial and change our perspective so that we can truly feel that joy. What I also know is that this is a loving, welcoming community. They walk their talk and they teach science of mind principles which help uplift us to living our best lives each and every day, no matter the circumstance. I invite you, wherever you are on your journey of faith, to get involved. Tune into a morning meditation, sign up for a class, find a prayer partner, volunteer. I guarantee you, I give you my word, you will find joy here. The ministers and members of this community have been welcoming. They seem to inspire, empower, and delight in unfolding and unpacking joy in each and every one of the people who visit this center, who volunteer their time, who work here. And it goes beyond the walls of this campus. I am honored and humbled to be speaking with you today about a subject that is near and dear to my heart, and that is joy. Today, I'm going to talk about three things: journeys, expectations, and the nearness of joy. So, hello, joy. I've been expecting you. Let's get started. Every journey has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it doesn't matter what journey you start on, they all have the same thing. Reverend Karen started the series on a journey through joy, and she talked about loading up on your spiritual tools. That is, practicing good self-care, deepening into the science of mind teachings. She talked about finding inspiration, doing something creative, and aligning with someone who will hold you accountable on your journey through joy. Because I guarantee you, somewhere in the middle, it's going to shift. Each week, various speakers graced this stage, and they talked about so many different aspects of joy. They talked about the alchemy of gratitude. They talked about the joy of futzing and the joy of solitude. They talked about the joy of creation. I myself looked to inspiration, and I found this book by Roger Teal. It's called This Life is Joy. Roger Teal is the former spiritual director at Mile High. He's a global, international spiritual leader, teacher, and mentor. And I love the little passage in his book that said, we must begin by knowing that we've arrived. We must start there. We must begin with a destination in mind, and we must set our intention to get there. Turning to the tools and teachings of Science of Mind, our founder, Ernest Holmes, reminds us to become conscious, awake, and aware. To look at our life, at what it is right now, and then ask ourselves, what do we want more of? What do we want instead? And so he taught us that there's a power for good in the universe, and we can use it. But what happens somewhere in the middle? The middle of our journey, when the going gets tough, life throws us a punch or a curve, didn't show up exactly as we expected. What happens when we get to the end of our journey and what we had been anticipating, imagining, hasn't revealed itself yet? All right, well, today I am standing here at the end of one of my own journeys. Today is the completion of my ministerial and master's program classes. My final paper has been written. It's not submitted, but it is written. And I'm about to cross the threshold, starting on a new journey. I started this journey about 4 years ago. I submitted my application. My heart was wide open. I had an enormous calling, and I just felt that this was my path. I encountered some hardships and some losses, and a major health challenge along the way. Today looks nothing like what I imagined it would be like 4 years ago. In the middle, I lost my dad, and I lost my mother-in-law within just a few short weeks of each other. And then 2 weeks later, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Chemo was no picnic. I lost all of my hair the day before my daughter's wedding. I asked for and I received enormous prayer support that shored me up and lifted me up so that I could travel on. I did my spiritual practice. I got up every day determined to get through. As Roger said, I had a destination in mind. I had somewhere to get to, and I had envisioned that it was already done. Trying to find joy in those moments was not easy. I practiced joy, seeing joy, finding joy, every step along the way. I would look for joy in the parking lot attendant. I would look for joy in my healthcare practitioners. I welcome joy from my friends and my family who stood by me and cheered me on. and I delighted in joy by well-meaning strangers who stopped me in the grocery store and whispered, "Your hair will grow back." Mine did. Joy was present. Today would have been my alternate graduation for me and Beverly Strutt. I say alternate because the real graduation was scheduled for June 7th, and that came and went. So we scheduled this one way out into the future. August 30th was going to be it. Well, due to COVID, graduation was canceled, and there are no plans for a future date at this time. Journeys are not linear. They don't start here and end over here. Instead, picture them like a sphere. We start someplace and we travel and we end and we begin again. As we cross that imaginary threshold, we know that a new beginning is just about to start, even in death. Ernest Holmes, the founder of our teaching, said, "We believe in the immortality, the eternality, and the continuity of the individual soul forever expanding." Part of my journey has included the call to chaplaincy. I've been ministering to people in hospice. I've been standing by their bedsides, listening to what's on their heart. I have taken part in celebrations of life. I have recognized joy through the tears of my patients and the families and loved ones that surround them. Last week, I participated in a slightly different ceremony. It was a celebration of love. Our hospice patient, Tom, was at the end of his journey. He chose to remarry the love of his life, Jackie. They started their journey 45 years ago. They were married. They raised a family. They lived life. And somewhere along the path, hardships happened, and they divorced. They went their separate ways. But just recently, Tom and Jackie found their way back to one another. Surrounded by a few friends and family, we participated in this celebration of love. Even though Tom is nearing the end of one of his journeys, Tom and Jackie chose to declare to God and their family their intention to begin again. Beginning again with the full knowing that they had already arrived in joy. I'd like to talk about expectations. Today, being my graduation, I decided that it didn't look the way I thought, so I would bring it along and celebrate. As I approach my senior year with great anticipation and an open heart, some questions, but an open heart, I realized this year my cancer treatments were done, my cancer was resolved, my hair had grown back, thicker and fuller, I might add, than it ever was before. I had mapped out all of my classes. We had road trips planned to Encinitas and a senior seminar in California that was it was going to be delicious. However, none of that transpired. Beverly and I, we worked together on our senior seminar, lighting candles in my room and practicing virtually so that we could create altars in the privacy of our own home. All of the trips that I had planned, including a huge family celebration, was canceled. Disappointment is often an inevitable byproduct of external expectations. The grief we feel is real, the loss we experience is real, and the frustration can be challenging at times. I found an inspiration in the lyrics by the Eagles. So oftentimes it happens that we live our life in chains, and we never even know that we have the key. I leaned into the teachings of Science of Mind and remembered my gift of choice. I can use my key of choice to unlock the chains that bind me to negative thinking. I want to tell you a quick story about Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She is the one who wrote about the 5 stages of grief. She owned a farm in Virginia, and it was there that she wrote all her precious books, and she ministered to hospice patients. Well, she was trying to bring in a clinic to serve people with infectious diseases, to serve AIDS patients, and some of the community was not happy about it. While she was out traveling, the farm burnt to the ground. There was suspicion that the fire was set intentionally. Elizabeth wrote these words. These are her words. At moments like this, we stand at a fork in the road. If we take the fork most commonly traveled, we collapse, we give up, feeling hopeless and defeated. It takes, after all, very little effort to feel victimized. I'd like to pause in the middle here and remind us that there are those among us who've experienced great hardships, severe loss, tragedies unimaginable. But what I know to be true is there is a path forward. Joy can be found. It might take some time. It might require some work and some kindness, but joy is there. It will be patiently waiting when you are ready. I'd like to continue with Elizabeth's words. We can, however, take the other fork. This is our choice. We can view the unhappy experience as an opportunity for a new beginning. We can keep our perspectives, look for growth opportunities, and find an inner reservoir of strength by simply deciding to see the possibilities rather than the pain. See the possibilities rather than the pain. I, meaning Elizabeth, was able to come through the loss of my home with more strength and more commitment than I had ever had before the fire. No longer tied to my house, I see that I was too attached to my old environment, too attached to make the move on my own. In a sense, I needed the tragedy of that fire to push me onward. My observation of her first choice, Elizabeth faced a fork in the road. She could have given in, crawled into a ball, wept and cried and felt sorry for herself. This fork is full of complaint and a lot of sorrow. In this place, you will not be alone because misery loves company. So your life will reflect exactly what you're putting out. Joy will seem very distant and maybe unattainable altogether. My second observation. Elizabeth chose the second fork in the road. She chose to acknowledge the loss of her home and the things that she could not change, of where she was and where she wanted to get to. She opened her heart and she began a new journey. She grieved and she got support. She went through all the stages of grief, and I got to tell you, grief is not linear. It's all over the place. You'll hit them all. But she shared her attachments. She shared that her attachments to the past were limiting. It kept her in a box. And she found more joy and more contentment when she made that move. Joy is the last thing we think of when we're going through hardship. It was for me when I was going through chemo, losing my hair, but I had resolve. Finding joy is a choice. Let's talk about the nearness of joy. The nearness of joy are the qualities of God, and they exist right here. It's not out there. I'd like to share a quote by Ernest Holmes called "The Power at the Heart of God." Ernest says, "It is through the revelation of the self to the self that one understands life, that he approaches the power which is at the heart of God. This comes through a recognition of the unity of the individual with the Spirit back of, in, and through all." The unity of life with Spirit. Spirit is back of, in, and through all. I'd like to ask, what difficulty are you experiencing in this moment? Is it possible in this moment to open your heart just a little bit for joy? It is oh so much nearer than you expect. I'd like to remind you that when you see joy catch a glimmer, it is God smiling back at you and is igniting, it is illuminating that joy that exists within you. When you see it, I invite you to say, hello. I'd like to wrap up right now and invite you to come on a little journey with us. If you would care to take a deep moment, a deep breath, close your eyes and put your hand on your heart and see a child, a small child, the skin color, the hair color, the gender of the child is of your own choosing. He's running in a meadow with flowers of every hue, the sky above a brilliant blue. The laughter on his face or her face is brimming from ear to ear, and nothing but joy is in its heart. A ribbon fluttering behind, catching the current. These children have not a care in the world. They recognize that joy is at hand. I want to remind you that joy is not out there, that joy is right here. And when you see it, remember to say, hello, joy, I've been expecting you. Please join me in an affirmative prayer. So recognizing that true joy that exists within the very depths of my being. It exists there, delighting and meeting the world head on. I recognize all of the qualities of God present in every moment. Inspiration, peace, harmony, abundance, wisdom. All of that is God expressing itself uniquely and individually as me and as everybody here and within the sound of my voice. We are individualized expressions, knowing God in our unique and wondrous ways. Each of us a reflection of that divine light. We open our hearts and we allow Spirit to express through us. I claim and affirm for every person right here, right now, that which is on your heart is lifted in joy, lifted in peace, lifted in tranquility and harmony. We are one human race, one planet. We are connected with all life, all the plants, all the stars in the heaven. All is good right here, right now. And that which we find on our middle of our journey, may it push us forward to that recognition of joy within each and every one of us. I bless all of the people in service today. I thank them for the overflowing of joy that has touched my life. I know good things for each and every one of you, for this community and beyond its walls. I celebrate and I let it go and let it be, and so it is.